So good afternoon and welcome to the Socratic Seminar for the Politics of Food. I am joined by Braden, Rebecca, and Cassidy, and hopefully some others may join us in the middle. So just some rules, protocols kind of to go over. Obviously, there's no hand raising because we can't see a couple of you and you can't see us. But remember that you three are having a discussion. I may jump in, but I'm going to try really hard not to. It was different when we only had one student this morning. But for the three of you, you're going to be kind of discussing the ideas so you can take notes. If there's something you want to say, but you're a little nervous about saying it, you can use the chat box feature in the Google Hangout. Hopefully I can keep an eye on that. But, you know, if you find yourself talking over someone, just kind of, hi, Braden. Yeah, see, I saw that. Just, you know, let them. I don't know if chivalry is dead or not, but just go ahead and work it out. The discussion is designed to help you discuss the issue. So if you haven't read and analyzed all the articles, just kind of listen. But if there's one that you have read, and you go to the paragraphs and kind of discuss what it says in there, that's great. So that's why you want to have your articles in front of you so that if you are referring to some support, you can say, well, in Barry's article, paragraph 5, it says. That's handy for everybody so that they can go back and find the reference. And if they decide they want to use it in their essay, then they can find it pretty quickly. And it is okay to disagree. In fact, we want that to happen. It's important for you to know what the counter argument is. And so just making sure that you're respectful. I always put this in, but I have never had an opportunity or an occasion where someone says, well, that's just stupid. Nobody has ever said that, so I don't expect it to start. But I wanted to set the rule there. So here's the first question. This is the question that was on the discussion board. And it says, with which author do you agree with the most and why? Who has the most valid argument? Who is the most persuasive? Is there anything you believe any of the authors have left out? So I've put together a couple of responses that I got on my boards. And I'm going to let these people be the first ones to speak. I believe that Barboza was most agreeable because he used a lot of references from different sources. I believe he used more than the other authors. He was easy to follow along and was very persuasive. Not many people look towards children's television or even toys being a conflict in their diet, and he pointed out things that many people would not regularly notice. I don't agree with him that it's influencing just children and then the children confront the parents about the food they want. Parents see these unhealthy foods also and just get them to satisfy their children without seeing the effects it is having on their children's health. So, how do you guys respond to that? First of all, what did you think of Barboza's article, and do you agree with what this person's saying?
In paragraph 41 of Barboza's article, I kind of found it a little offensive to some audiences because basically they're calling a lot of moms, well, in 41 and in 42, they're basically saying it's the mom's fault because she's gone for work, and I feel like that kind of stereotypes the mom should take care of the kids and should be at home while the dad works. And I feel like that might upset some audiences.
It upset you?
No. But it's like something I just realized while I was reading it, and like I annotated that, so.
Braden or Rebecca?
I do agree with that.
Go ahead.
I do agree with that. They that they're advertising type kids because you can see how there are more advertisements on the channels than there are on the adult channel.
You're kind of fading in and out, Braden. Can you repeat what you just said?
You can see how there are more advertisements for food companies on the kids channels than there are on the adult channel.
Okay. Has anybody taken time to sit and count on a Saturday morning on one of those? That would be interesting, and especially you've got a couple of days if you want to just an experiment. If you went on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Channel or one of those, and how would you figure that out? What evidence would you get, and then what do you think that might prove?
That the advertisers are actually targeting children more than they are adults.
Okay, so what are you counting?
The amount of times there's a commercial compared on a children's program and an adults program. That's based off of kind of food kind of category.
Okay. Good. Is there anything else any other information that you could gather yourself that might be helpful towards either proving or disproving Barboza?
You could look up some statistics of kind of what products are more likely for children to buy and then adults to buy, and then notice what they show on more programs on a child program or an adult program.
Okay.
You could look up how many contracts there are with TV characters on selling food.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, what do you think?
I agree with both Cassidy and Braden that if you look at the statistics, that would show a lot about food companies are going more towards children than adults because they're easier to implement.
What about teens? Do you think that there are advertisers out there specifically targeting to teens when it comes to food?
Well, I mean, Coke and Pepsi, they're 48, kind of said they're targeting adults and teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
But considering that in paragraph 15, they're kind of saying 4 to 12-year-olds are kind of the target that they're doing for children, I kind of think that they're kind of technically going for some preteens, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that they're kind of just doing all around specifically for children or minors.
Okay. Who have you guys seen advertising Coke and Pepsi? Famous people.
You.
Me? No, you haven't seen me. Interesting.
I haven't really. Oh, there was like a Kendall Jenner, like that big controversy about the Pepsi commercial a while ago.
Okay. And is she someone that, oh wow, she drinks Pepsi, I'm going to drink Pepsi too? Is that kind of, because that isn't that what the intent is?
I guess in a sort of way, but at the same time they got more publicity because everyone was kind of talking about it because the commercial was kind of weird.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna say.
And that is called what? When you're using a celebrity to advertise, what device is that called?
Isn't that like Ethos?
Mm-hmm. So in that case, it may or may not work. Who has advertised for Coke?
I don't think there was any celebrities, but they keep doing the ones where they're like little tiny skits of like, oh, the dude was like staring at a girl, but then he was gonna make a move, then like not, and then they end up drinking Coke together and stuff.
Rebecca or Braden, have you seen any celebrities advertising Coke?
I haven't seen that, but I've seen a lot of celebrities advertising like Gatorade.
Okay. Primarily.
Yeah, I agree with Braden. I don't really see more so on the soda side.
Okay. I know Taylor Swift has done some. I know that.
Yeah, a while
yeah.
ago. She's like Diet Coke.
And Jeff Gordon did that Pepsi, that whole, with the car and disguise and everything. But the athletes in the Gatorade, and is there anything wrong with Gatorade?
It has a large amount of sugar and sodium in it.
Mm.
But it has a lot of electrolytes, which help too.
Yeah.
I think they come from the sugar in the.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's now. So that was Barboza. This person preferred Barry's article. I would have to agree with our first author, Wendell Berry. As someone who is very much into health and fitness, I love the way he exposed our public health system. He appeals both emotionally, like the comment about the calf in the box, and logically, using statistics and facts. Barboza's If You Pitch It includes the most logical and emotional arguments. With his balance of statistics and interviews with parents, he definitely knows how to catch the reader's attention. When discussing America's health as a whole, it is important to bring up exercise as well as diet. How inactive America is as a whole plays a big factor in our overall health. Barry also fails to mention how unrealistic it is that people can afford organic, grass-fed, non-GMO foods. So what do you guys think of what this person said or what Barry said? And we want to welcome Sage and Jorge to the group. And
I'm currently in class, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk.
okay.
And then once we graduate, me and you're gonna hang out together.
Try. Do you have any headphones or earbuds nearby?
I got headphones.
Now that will cut off your mic, but you can type comments or questions into the chat box. So that may be one way that you can stop the double feed. Is anybody else having problems with feedback as they're listening to this?
We're not rivals with school. School, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for, muting the mic helps. And so Jorge, if you want to just put in your questions in the chat box, all you do is mouse over to the upper left-hand corner and you see it's a little blue square. And that's what will open up the chat box for you when you want to jump into this. Okay. Sage has left the chat group. Got it. Thank you, George. See it. Okay. Back to Barry. So let's start with Rebecca this time. Did you have a chance to look at Barry?
Yes.
What do you think about what this person said, or what did you think about Barry's article?
I do agree in this person in the first paragraph said about exposing our public health system and appeals both emotionally and logically, just based on like the facts that he brought into the text. And so yeah.
What is one piece of evidence, Rebecca, that you highlighted? What's one of the things that jumped out at you and you took note of it?
It was probably in paragraph 6. It was stated that the industrial eater is in fact one who does not know that eating is an agricultural act, and it goes down until it says, in short, a victim. I thought that was interesting how in the end he had stated specifically victim as how such people felt. And I thought that was just an interesting word he used to describe the people.
Good. And what effect does that have when using the word victim? What's that device known as?
I don't know right now.
Somebody want to help her out?
Pathos?
Pathos, right. That one is definitely pathos. And that's something that you really want to look at when you get these reactions to what authors say. You take a look at it and you see how you're getting manipulated using the word victim. Now, what does that mean? The industrial eater is in fact one who does not know that eating is an agricultural act. What do you think Barry means by that?
They don't
This
know
can
that.
go to anybody. Go ahead, Braden.
They don't know that what they eat determines what becomes in the grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of just think it like magically appears.
Magically appears.
Like they don't think of how it's grown. They don't think about, okay, like, is it made in a factory? Is it actually grown in a field? Like the aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. And yet, why would, okay, let's say you want to get some apples. Are you going to go get them at Vaughn's, or are you going to go get them at Food for Less or Food Max?
Bonds.
Does it matter?
Doesn't necessarily matter unless you're looking at price. Or
Okay.
like the varieties, if there's organic and non-GMO.
Right. And Food Max is less likely to, I don't know, do they have organic foods?
I didn't think so. Like, when I was looking for the organic foods and stuff, I didn't see any.
And why is that? Why wouldn't Food Max have the organic foods?
Because they're known for like their lower prices, and organic food is kind of pricey. Like, there's $5 for a bell pepper.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know why that is?
Due to the fact that their crop may die because, like, they're not using any pesticides. There's not like
They're not adding
their food will die.
What did you say, Rebecca?
They're not like adding anything when they grow such like produce. They're not adding extra things to either make it grow larger or in quantity.
Okay. Jorge says they don't know what's going on the food. I think they're the same thing. Organic aren't GMOs and don't have pesticides, and that's true. And if you go to the stores that have them, if you look at them, you'll notice that they don't have that glossy shine. You know, they're very dull. Where does that glossy shine come from? Do they come off of trees like that?
No, it's the pesticides that they cover in during processing.
Pesticides and a preservative, because I think part of it is, and that was the point. Who made that point about buying the apples that look prettier?
Rainer did.
Rainer did.
In his agriculture, the guy with the one.
Okay. What did you guys think of Rainer's article?
I think it was actually really reasonable because, for one, while Barry didn't address the prices and like the affordability, Rainer actually did, and he kind of talked about if the price spikes come up, like the things that happened in other countries of the riots and deaths and stuff. He kind of addresses that a little bit more reasonably, and basically says like it's okay for big agriculture to exist.
Mm-hmm. Braden, Rebecca, or Jorge, what did you guys think of Raider? Braden and Raider. That was hard. I'm sorry, Braden. We have no opinion on Raider, or we didn't Rainer, or you haven't quite had a chance to look at him yet.
I've looked at him, but I don't really have an opinion.
Go ahead.
You looked at it, but
He's more down to earth, like what's really happening and what's the color, why it looks perfect, why people don't want to be in the agriculture business.
okay. Let's see. And Jorge's asking the title of it. Rayner's title. That's the big old long title.
Agriculture is the only option.
Big up.
The world going hungry.
Right. It's the fourth one. Was the last one that you did.
I kind of want to point out because I actually was kind of confused about that though at first. During the time this article was made, it was only when Twitter and Facebook barely started up. So at first, when I was thinking about like the prettiness and the superficialness of the fruits, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe it's because they wanted to post like pictures of the food like people do nowadays. But that wasn't actually a really big thing at the time.
It still is.
It still is, but it wasn't that big of a thing in 2010.
Looking at the discussion boards, I noticed that a lot of people went with the other articles. Maybe it is because it's the fourth one, and if you haven't had a chance to look at it, and like Cassidy said, this is a good, well-documented article. Just looking at the title and the subtitle, what would you predict Rayner's claim is? And you can't answer because you already know it, because you read it. Okay, we're just doing a little bit of predicting here. Based on the title and the subtitle, what do you think Rayner is saying about this topic? By the way, do you all have this in front of you, even if you didn't read it? It's called Big Agriculture is the Only Option to Stop the World Going Hungry. That's the title. And its subtitle is Food Riots, such as those in Mozambique, could soon be seen here too, unless we overhaul the way we produce food. So based on those, what do you think his claim is? So Allison, welcome. What we're doing right now is we're looking, some people didn't have a chance to look at Rayner's article. So we're looking at the title and the subtitle, and we're trying to predict what his claim is. One more time, big agriculture is the only option to stop the world going hungry. Food riots such as those in Mozambique could soon be seen here too, unless we overhaul the way we produce food. Okay. Jorge says, I think he believes that massive production of food is necessary to sustain ourselves. Gold star for Jorge. That's exactly what he's going to be talking about. And why does he think we need to have this overproduction? Doesn't this world create enough food to feed hungry people? You can answer now.
It's also because if you have an overproduction, the prices go down because it's not as scarce. So then more people can actually buy it and not starve.
Okay. So what do you think of that argument? Now that you've heard it, you don't necessarily have to at this point have the his reasoning, but your first reaction. Braden, what do you think of that? Would you agree or disagree with that?
I'm going to
Braden,
switch to the text. I'm going to
Okay.
switch to the text because I'm getting back feed.
Okay, sounds good. He says, yes, but people want perfect food and won't buy food that looks a little bad. And that is what Rayner says. He says that that's very true. A lot of us are very spoiled. For those of you who eat lunch at your school site, what do the apples look like when they provide them for you?
Not good.
Does anybody ever eat the fruit that is offered at school?
If I'm
No.
super hungry.
Disgusting. I find them hard as rocks. It's just, but that's the thing. If we're producing those apples, and you know that the reason the school has them, they're government subsidied, probably. They're inexpensive, but that's what your choice is. Do you see any kind of solution to that problem?
I don't think the solution is how Rainer pointed out in paragraph 5, that like the farmers have to grade out a lot of their crop just because they don't look perfect. And I kind of, during this, for this argument, I'm kind of going to go back to Rainer's paragraph 11, where he said, people are going to rage against big agriculture and refuse to engage with it. However, when basic ingredients become scarce and prices shoot up on international markets, the cries will sound increasingly hollow compared to the screams of those who cannot afford to feed your families.
Okay.
So I kind of think like, okay, if you're really, really hungry, you're not going to necessarily be picky about how it looks.
Okay.
More of the substance.
Now, Braden says that they actually look good, and he finds a lot of people eating them at Highland. And stop being spoiled. That's it. Okay. And that's the thing. Do you think now, Rainer is writing this, he's in Great Britain, he's in the UK. And so all of his information is really talking about what's going on in those republics that are under Great Britain. Do you think we have the same problem here in the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people go based off of like what their food looks like still.
Okay. Jorge, you say no. We've got Allison and Rebecca saying they think so. So, Jorge, why do you say no? And he's going to type out his answers. While he's doing that, Mr. Short, did you want to jump in with any questions or comments at this point?
No, can you hear me? Hello?
And we're not hearing you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. I just think it's interesting the disparity between Rainer's point of view and the other article's point of view, given the fact that Rainer believes that big agriculture is the only option to stop the world going hungry. In some of the other articles, like Michael Pollan's When Crop Becomes King, he talks about the problems with big agriculture. And here we have the flip side of the story with Rainer. And I just thought that was a very interesting pairing of articles.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So Jorge's response was he thinks that we don't have this problem because we are the lead producer of food, and he believes that everyone has access to food. Well, let's hear back on that one. Those of you who said that you think we do have a problem with food shortage, what can you say to Jorge? And Allison says, whenever people are at the supermarket, I think that what they look first at is the appearance of what they're about to buy all the time. Does anybody know what happens to the fruit that gets picked over? I honestly don't.
Sometimes they trash it, and then other times, some stores, like I read a couple years ago, they actually go to like shelters and donate.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know how common that is.
Both Rebecca and Braden are saying, and Jorge says they go to the trash.
One of the articles I remember reading talked about how apples got juiced if they weren't good enough to be sold to the stores.
Okay. That's actually probably better what we want to see happen anyway. And I would think paragraph 5 of Rayner.
Yeah, Rayner.
Okay, paragraph 5 of Rayner. Look at the bags of perfect fruit, shiny, unblemished, the supermodels of the apple world. They only look like that because of the grading out of fruit, which, while perfectly edible, is not comely enough for harried shoppers. In Kent, recently, I met David Deemy, the for decades an apple farmer, who a few years ago decided he had to stop supplying supermarkets because he was being forced to grade out 30 to 40% of his fruit. He found this unacceptable and chose to move into a premium market by making apple juice. Other English apple growers have similar stories to tell. So yeah, there's that evidence there. So, but the question is, who's got access to that apple juice? So they don't fall bankrupt, right? So the farmers don't. But the point that Mr. Short made, if we look at that, so we know from pollen that the corn overproduction has forced this production of the high fructose corn syrup. It's a cheaper sweetener. It's found in a lot of different cheap foods, but the cheap foods are what people who we're reading a book right now for the One Book, One Bakersfield, living on $2 a day, living on practically nothing in America. You're reading that, right? Are you reading? You're not reading that. Okay. And that says that at this point, 40% of America, after they've received whatever grants or funding, federal funding, but even at that, they work fewer hours. They don't have a steady income. These people are living on $2 or less a day on what they can eat. So that means that the only choices they have are going to be these inexpensive foods. But, you know, the point was made earlier that they will go after the crummy looking fruit, especially if it's lower priced. So if Rayner and Barry, right, it's Barry, are in the same room together, there's a bag of Doritos, what argument are they going to have?
It's Barry Rayner.
Uh-huh.
First off, Barry's probably going to go on a rant about, like, how bad it is for the preservatives and everything, because those can last a while.
You know, you can start campfires with them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Saw that. And I think Rayner is going to be kind of taking the position of, it's still food, and people are going to starve, but I really don't know exactly what position he's going to take besides that, because they're not necessarily the best thing, as Barboza kind of points out.
Okay.
Like, it's going to cause obesity, and then everyone's going to die. Prematurely, anyway. Somehow.
Right. So what evidence from any of the articles has changed your perspectives on food?
I don't think any of my perspectives of food would change based off of these articles.
Okay. To be honest, none have. Braden, I think you mean none have, right? Okay. Then let me ask you this. Let's go back to the original question. Who made the better argument? Doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. Who do you think set up the better argument and why? Jorge says, I really like the first article. Sounds very deep into the production of our food and our connection. Braden's going to Barboza. So let's hear why. How did they they formulate their argument? What kinds of tools did they use to make that better argument?
I feel Paulin made it when crop becomes a king, because for one, he actually cited a lot of his sources, which kind of like the other ones really didn't do. And then he used a lot of numbers, which I kind of like within an article concerning where they're kind of just trying to persuade you of like, don't do this. And he kind of brings up government officials also of why our country is failing financially because of corn. And just because he kind of goes over all aspects of how corn is ruining our nation.
Okay. So you've mentioned the statistics, so that would be which of the three? What of the three?
That's not Ethos. It's not Ethos.
It's
no.
not Ethos.
Okay, so then that leaves what's that one? Give me a second.
Help her out, everybody. When you're using the statistics, what devices? Okay, logos. Thank you, Jorge. So he's got logos. You also mentioned that he talks about his sources. What are a couple of examples of the sources? Who did he go to for information?
He went to the Omnivore's Dilemma: A Natural History of Four Meals, and that's kind of one of his own books also.
So he cited himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, he also was talking about the University of Minnesota's research.
Okay.
In paragraph 10, along with. He also was kind of giving a little bit more of examples of the companies also of what exactly what's their benefits of corn.
Okay. So we have. What's that one?
That one is logo still, isn't it?
Nope.
So wouldn't it be maybe Ethos?
Ethos, right.
The big company?
Think expert, Ethos, EE. Okay. Is there any pathos in this?
I believe so. In paragraph 11, he talks about how marine life's getting killed off in like a large space. So I kind of think he's being like, oh, these innocent animals are dying kind of vibe.
All right. So a balance. You're finding a balance in there.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to have a balance of all three. It's just what will work for you. So looking back, Braden's saying Barboza had a ton of evidence. Please don't use that phrase in the essay, Braden. But what kind of evidence? I mean, how would you categorize the evidence of? First of all, let me ask you this question since you're typing. Logos, lots of logos, and any ethos in there? If so, what paragraph number could we find some ethos for Barboza? Okay, Jorge, that's fine. This will be posted in a little while, and thank you for joining us. You're good to go. Ethos is the expertise. So ethos is when Cassidy had mentioned earlier about the sources that Paulin cited. So he organized like other plate. Wait, no, that wasn't what did you say again about the?
One of them was he was kind of referring to one of his books, and then on top of he was referring to one of his books, and then he also referred to the University of Minnesota's research.
Okay, so University of Minnesota. That gives you your ethos. Logos, again, that's the only one that you can actually make sense of. Logic, logos. So it's going to be the numbers, the facts, the statistics. Pathos is, here's what I was told many, many years ago from my professor of English at Cal State Bakersfield. He said, This is the definition of pathos. Think of dropping a brick on a kitten.
Lovely.
Yeah, and that kind of helped. So, so Braden, show me a paragraph or tell us a paragraph number in Barboza that you believe really has some good evidence in it. The problem of obesity is so staggering, so out of control that we have to do something, says Walter Willett, a professor of nutrition at the Harvard School of Public Health. The vast majority of what they sell is junk, Mr. Willett says of the big food bakers. How often do you see fruits and vegetables marketed? So, 9. Okay. Well, since you made me read paragraph 8, here's what you're going to do. What kind of evidence is paragraph 8, Braden? Correct. It is Ethos because it is Mr. Willett of the Public Health, Harvard School of Public Health. That's kind of, that's where your ethos is. So let's look at 9. The increase in food marketing to children has closely The increase in food marketing to children has closely tracked their increase in weight. Since 1980, the number of obese children has more than doubled to 16%, according to the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is a really nice logos, a good fact, especially with the CDC. That also adds ethos to it. Very good. Okay, Allison preferred Barry, and he uses a lot of evidence and common sense. So, Allison, can you, in Barry's article, tell us a paragraph where we can find some of the common sense stuff that you're referring to? And Rebecca, while we're waiting for her, you said Barboza as well. Can you get, Barboza. Can you tell us in Barboza one of the better pieces of evidence that you found in his article?
I have a question about understanding a little bit.
Okay.
What's Texas A&M?
It's a university.
It's a university? Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Okay, Allison is in paragraph 4 of Barry. Most urban shoppers would tell you that food is produced on farms, but most of them do not know what farms or what kind of farms or where the farms are or what knowledge or skills are involved in farming. They apparently have little doubt that farms will continue to produce, but they do not know or over what obstacles. For them, then, food is pretty much an abstract idea, something they do not know or imagine until it appears on the grocery shelf or their table. That definitely does sound common sense. Really good way of putting that all together. And Allison, when you use common sense, which of the 3 is that? Ethos, pathos, or logos when it's common sense? Ethos, pathos, or logos, common sense.
Which paragraph was this?
She was referring to paragraph 4 of Barry. Just think of I don't know if you guys know Mr. Spock. Well, wait, there's the new Star Trek. Maybe you do. And anybody can jump in. Ethos, pathos, or logos? What is common sense?
Logos. Right?
You've seen all of the movies. That's ethos, sort of, but it's probably more logos because it's everybody knows this is true. It's only logical that this would be true. So the common sense thing kind of fits under the logos. Now, if you're talking to a brilliant scientist or a professor of some sort, and they say it's common sense, then yes, you could also call that ethos. So, yeah. And this isn't, there's not like a full out test. There's never going to be a test where I'm going to tell you, hey, is this ethos, pathos, or logos? You already did that in freshman and sophomore years. So, but what we're trying to get you to understand here is the balance between them and the audience, how your audience is going to react to each one of them. Mr. Short, before I go into the writing topics, was there any questions that you had or any points you wanted to bring up?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I really like the Michael Pollan article the best, when crop becomes king. And primarily that was because he talks about how in the 1980s, there is the wholesale switch to corn sweeteners. And this coincides directly with the obesity epidemic and the type 2 diabetes epidemic in our country. And, you know, the question on the screen is, what evidence from any of the articles changed your perspective on food? And for me, that was the statement that stood out to me amidst all of the other statements in all the other articles.
And mine was, if you pitch it, they will eat. What I think about is, you know, where these influences are. When you go to McDonald's and the child wants the Happy Meal because they want the movie tie-in prize. Do they eat all the fries and the cheeseburgers, or do they go for the apple slice choice? You know, there's a lot that has to do with it. Although I do agree that with the high fructose corn syrup, that can add the problem. But the point that one of the students made earlier was about exercise, and that is critical. That is key. Junk food has been around for an awfully long time, but how often do kids go outside and play? You know, especially in an environment where you have to be careful where children go, and you don't know who may be out there are predators on children. So it's really this kind of there's so much balance that has to be done here when it comes to food, and it comes to the preservatives that are in foods and so forth. Okay. I'll just tell what this question is, because it actually does lead into one of the choices for the writing task. And that is, what policies do you think need to be implemented based on the information from any of the articles? What information would you need to make available to people in order to have them agree with you? This is a question that is asking for argument in judgment. And you'll see this in just a second. So, if you are saying there's a problem, something needs to change, that's the argument of judgment. So just real quickly, can someone give us an example of a policy that maybe we should have, particularly as it pertains to you in your role as a student in the Kern High School District? Is there any policy you think that the Kern High School District may need to adopt when it comes to foods available in the cafeteria, say?
I haven't been on campus in a while. So
okay.
no.
No more canned food. Okay. And what is it about the canned food, Allison, that's bad? Other than the fact it sounds like dog food. I'm assuming that you're referring to the canned vegetables that they use, just reheat.
And those weird fruit cocktail salad things that you get out of the can.
Yeah. I don't know if they still give those away. Okay. Any other policies? You may not be eating in cafeterias right now anyway, so. I do know at North High, they stole this pizza that was on whole wheat dough. Because it was on whole wheat dough, it was acceptable, but they still put on the processed cheese, the processed pepperoni, and it would drip. Your pizza would drip grease. And I just thought that was bad. So I think that because it has been stored for probably a really long time and it isn't healthy. Canned foods do have a shelf life. Hopefully they are checking the dates. I'm pretty sure that, although I do know they've sold milk that has expired. So definitely we need to make sure all the foods are stamped correctly. Okay, so here's what you're going to see in 1.72 for the task. The first part is always the setup. Although I think we're getting away from these. I don't know if the SBAC looked like this last year, but you have to be careful that there's a setup. Food is an essential part of the human experience. It is necessary for life and is a key ingredient of culture. A government that cannot feed its people is not a good government. People make individual choices about what to eat and how to prepare it, but governments also make policies that control and influence the type, abundance, and quality of food. A balanced diet can make us healthy, while eating a limited diet of one or two types of food, even if the food is high quality, can make us sick. Food can appear to be healthy, but contain pesticides, contaminants, or dangerous bacteria. We make personal choices about food, but our choices are influenced by advertising and government policies. For example, Wendell Berry wants us to become more aware and involved in the food we eat. He wants us to ask questions and make personal choices. Michael Pollan discusses the unintended consequences of massive government subsidies on the price and availability of corn. His argument is a policy argument. David Barboza discusses the influence of advertising on the food we desire. He is interested in how advertising influences our personal choices. Although Jay Rayner does not mention Wendell Berry by name, he clearly thinks that if everyone made the personal choices that Berry recommends, it would lead to food that was too expensive for most people to buy, with dire social consequences. Now we get to the actual task. Taking the statement that you wrote in the discussion, which was, which one did the better job, with which author do you agree most as a starting point, and taking the arguments and evidence of all four authors into account, choose one of the following writing tasks. The first one is considered an argument of judgment. Is there kind of a problem? Is there a way that you want to solve this problem? This is just for you. In response to the four articles you read in this module, write an essay in which you state your own personal preferences regarding food. And in this paper, describe the main criteria by which you will make decisions about food. Discuss what kinds of foods you will buy for yourself and your family members, where you will buy it, and how you will prepare it. In addition to references to one or more of the four articles, support your food plan with logical arguments and evidence. The other choice is an argument of policy. In response to the four articles you read in this module, what should policymakers, politicians, school boards, food safety experts do to make the food supply healthy and affordable? You might discuss such issues as food labeling, agricultural subsidies, nutritional education, food inspections, and regulations. That doesn't mean you have to do all of them. Those are just some choices to pick from. You might also discuss whether certain types of unhealthy foods should be banned from stores.
I'm not sure, because since I'm new, there's a student out here. His name's Robert. He said he's supposed to be here from 3 to 5.
He not up here. We're done in 2 minutes.
Okay, but are you Kern?
Yes, tell him to go back
Okay,
downstairs.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Write an essay in which you describe a policy or plan that would improve our food supply or the health of the population. In addition to references to one or more of the 4 articles, support your plan with logical arguments and evidence. So is there something that needs to change here? So you get to choose one or the other. Are there any questions that we can answer for you right now? Either Mr. Short or myself. Cassidy has shaken her head no.
Sorry.
She's good to go.
Probably should have made that verbal.
Braden, Allison, anything you want to ask? Okay, Braden's good. All right. And Mr. Short, any final word on that?
Allison, the question is it supposed to be a 5-paragraph essay?
Good
And
question.
the way I would address that question is to say, the minimum I would like to see is a 4-paragraph essay, but you can certainly write a longer essay than 5 paragraphs. When we think about the length of an essay, what we have to think about is which points are being made in the introduction. And what we'll do is introduce the points we're going to discuss in the introduction, and then we will have a body paragraph discussing each of those points. So if you want to discuss 4 points in the essay, then you would have a 6-paragraph essay, an intro, 4 body paragraphs, 1 for each point, and then a conclusion paragraph. So I don't want to restrict you to any particular length other than to say it needs to be at least 4 strong, well-written paragraphs at a minimum. Does that help?
And I agree totally. For my students, that would also be the same. And I have put in my resources, there's what I'm expecting in the essay, and that's pretty much what Mr. Short has discussed. I look specifically for topic sentences, the evidence. There should be at least 2 pieces of evidence per topic that you're writing about. And then each one of those pieces of information comes with what we call a warrant. And the warrant is the explanation of how that piece of evidence ties to what your topic sentence is saying. And so in those body paragraphs, so you're having it's called a chunk, really. And it's a piece of evidence with commentary that talks about how it's linked back to the topic sentence and then the main idea itself. I look at, when I'm grading, I look at that. I find that spine. And so I know some people take 3 or 4 sentences to do it and can do it wonderfully. There are others who take a little bit longer, and that's just wonderful too. I am not looking for Stephen King, Ernest Hemingway. I'm looking for ideas. So hopefully that answers your question. And anybody else have a question?
So if we have more than like 3 points we want to make up, it's okay if we go over like
Yes.
paragraph.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Okay. All right, then. As soon as we click off here, it takes a few minutes to upload this. You do not have to go back and listen to it. And I think I don't know if I explained this online or not, but if you want to go back and do the discussion board and go through that, you can actually double the points that you've earned today for being here. So, and if you have any questions for that, just ask either me or Mr. Short, and we can clarify that for you. So I want to thank you all for your participation today. It was a really nice conversation. Thank you, Mr. Short, for being here as well.
Thank you
And-
very much, Mrs. Campbell. You did an excellent job of hosting the Socratic seminar.
Thank you. All right, so don't forget to basically hang up if you just go to the top and press that little receiver or close the window. Thank you all for being here.